Okay, so let's begin this deep dive. We've been looking at some really um, quite profound ideas about health, haven't we?
Very much so.
It's like a different way of seeing things, viewing our bodies, our daily actions, with this deeper sense of, well, almost reverence.
Exactly. It moves beyond just the physical mechanics.
Yeah, it touches on everything, how we eat, how we move, even how we, relate to our thoughts. It all seems woven together.
It does.
And today, I think our goal is really to explore these core ideas, see how they feel, how they might perhaps shed some light on our own paths to well-being.
And what really stands out initially is this core notion, isn't it? The idea of the body, not just as a physical machine, but as something more like a sacred temple.
That phrase really lands, doesn't it? Sacred temple.
It immediately changes the perspective. It suggests a different kind of relationship with ourselves, a different quality of care.
It does. It makes you think of that quiet respect you feel when entering a special place. And you think, well, why shouldn't we offer that same kind of attention, that care to our own being? There's even that lovely story about Ananda, the monk, and his mindful eating.
Ah, yes, that's a beautiful illustration.
It sounds like every mouthful for him was this act of, well, profound gratitude. Not just for the food, but for everything involved in getting it there.
The sun, the rain, the earth, the growers, the whole web.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And the result described is fascinating. He apparently became stronger, more serene, more alive. It wasn't just fuel, was it?
No, clearly not. It speaks volumes about the power of our intention, our awareness. He wasn't just consuming, he was connecting, participating, nurturing his spirit alongside his body.
Which really makes you pause and think about how often we eat,
Wow.
almost unconsciously.
Right. Distracted, rushed, maybe barely tasting it.
Yeah. And you wonder, what signals from our body are we missing then? Those subtle cues about fullness or what we truly need.
And that habit, that rushing, can actually interfere with digestion, with our body's natural wisdom.
Which leads beautifully into this idea of the middle way applied to health.
Finding balance.
Yeah, steering clear of extremes. Not too much, not too little. Finding that point of equilibrium in how we nourish ourselves, how we rest, how we move.
It's a call to listen, really.
It really is. And it poses that question, doesn't it? When did you last, really pause and just listen to your body's quieter messages before the tiredness becomes exhaustion or the hunger becomes ravenous?
That's the challenge in our busy lives, isn't it? Making that space for quiet listening often feels like swimming against the tide.
It totally does. Then there's that wonderful metaphor, the body as a garden.
I love that image.
It needs tending, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But gently. Too much water, too little sunlight. It won't thrive. It needs that just right balance.
Consistency, care, but not forceful control,
Exactly. And this brings us to the first key principle, moderation.
which can sometimes sound a bit restrictive.
Right. But here it seems less about harsh rules and more about finding that natural harmony, that sweet spot in eating, moving, resting.
So it's about listening for that harmony within rather than imposing rules from without. More intuitive.
Precisely. Guided by the body's own intelligence. And from there, we flow into this idea of movement as meditation.
Okay, tell me more about that, because often exercise feels like a chore, something to get through.
Doesn't it? But what if we shifted that? What if movement became an opportunity to really connect, to be fully present in our bodies? Think back to Ananda again, not eating this time, but sweeping the temple grounds. It wasn't just cleaning, was it? It was described as this mindful, deliberate act, aware of each sweep, each breath, grounded in the present moment.
So it reframes activity. The intention behind the movement becomes just as important as the movement itself, cultivating presence while engaging the body.
Yeah, even maybe the more intense activity.
Yeah.
Perhaps bringing that same quality of attention, noticing the breath, the effort, the sensations, rather than just pushing towards a goal.
That makes sense. Focusing on the process, not just the outcome.
And that presence, that slowing down, leads us naturally to think about rest, about sleep.
Which often gets sidelined in our productivity-focused world.
So true. But this perspective sees sleep as absolutely vital. A fundamental healing process, not a luxury. It emphasizes that our brain is incredibly active during sleep.
Right, it's not just switching off, it's processing, consolidating memories, repairing tissues.
Exactly. Real active restoration for mind and body.
It challenges that badge of honor some people wear for getting by on little sleep.
It really does. And it suggests, creating a calming bedtime routine, making that transition sacred, a time to truly let go and recharge. That's something I know I could personally focus on more.
Me too.
Yeah.
Treating it as a practice.
And then wrapping up this focus on the body itself, we come to something so simple,
Yeah.
yet profound. Gratitude. Gratitude for this physical form.
Which can be hard when we're so conditioned to focus on flaws, on what we want to change.
Absolutely, we can be our own harshest critics. But what if we consciously shifted our focus? What if we started acknowledging all the incredible things our bodies do for us, constantly, without us even asking?
That's a powerful reframe, moving from judgment to appreciation. How might one practice that?
Well, the idea of a gratitude journal specifically for the body seems really helpful. Just noting small things. My feet carried me today, my eyes saw the sunrise, my lungs keep breathing. Simple things.
It feels like that could genuinely shift one's relationship with their body over time. Less criticism, more kindness.
Yeah, definitely. So, okay, we've talked about this inner world, the body as a sacred space. But then the perspective widens, doesn't it?
It does. It moves outwards to this idea of interconnectedness.
Right. Our well-being isn't just happening in a vacuum. It's deeply linked to our environment, our habits, the energy around us. It draws on that core teaching. We are all interconnected.
Which broadens the definition of health quite significantly. It's
Yeah.
not just biological, it's ecological, social.
Exactly. And the first principle here is about surrounding ourselves with positivity. This concept of the ripple effect.
How the energy we're immersed in affects our own inner state.
Yeah. There's that story about the village thriving in harmony, then declining when conflict arose, and finally being restored when they remembered their connection.
It's a powerful metaphor for how toxic relationships, or even, say, a cluttered, chaotic space, can subtly drain our energy.
Totally. It makes you think about the energetic nutrition we get from our surroundings, right?
It underscores the importance of being mindful about who we spend time with, what media we consume, the state of our homes.
Consciously curating our environment to support our well-being, making intentional choices.
Yes.
And then, connected to environment, is this deep appreciation for nature.
Nature as a teacher and healer.
Exactly. It presented as this incredible source of wisdom, showing us impermanence with the seasons, resilience in a tree weathering a storm, the beauty of balance.
And it's not just poetic, is it? There's science backing this up now.
Right. Research showing time in nature lowers stress hormones, boosts mood. I read something fascinating about forests releasing compounds, phytoncides.
Yes, phytoncides. They've been linked to boosting our immune system, specifically our natural killer cells.
Wow. So it's not just a feeling of calm, there are actual physiological benefits happening.
It's a wonderful convergence, isn't it? Ancient wisdom recognizing nature's power, and modern science starting to understand the mechanisms behind it.
It really is. And the suggestions are often so simple. Just find a quiet spot outside, maybe close your eyes, and just feel the air, the sounds, the ground beneath you.
Bringing mindful awareness to that connection.
Yeah. Or eating seasonally, appreciating where our food comes from, the elements involved, weaving that connection into daily life, not just weekend hikes.
Making it part of our rhythm.
And then perhaps the biggest challenge for many of us in this modern world, mastering the mind.
Yes,
Yeah.
the untrained mind, sometimes likened to a wild horse, right? Galloping off in all directions.
Exactly. And identifying chronic stress is this major threat to our health today.
Which so many people experience.
And the key offered here is mindfulness, that capacity to be present, right here, right now, without judgment.
So, this tackles our inner landscape directly, recognizing how our thoughts, our emotional reactions profoundly shape our physical state. When it mentions rising above attachment, aversion, and ignorance, what does that mean in a health context?
Good question. I think attachment here could mean letting go of clinging too tightly to specific outcomes, like a certain weight, or to unhealthy habits we know don't serve us.
Okay, and aversion.
Maybe overcoming that resistance to discomfort, like the discomfort of changing a habit or accepting our body as it is right now rather than constantly fighting it. And ignorance. Perhaps that's not fully seeing the interconnectedness or not recognizing our own capacity for inner peace despite external circumstances.
I see. So mindfulness helps us see those patterns more clearly.
Exactly. That example of being stuck in traffic is so relatable. The automatic surge of frustration versus the possibility of noticing the frustration, breathing, and choosing not to let it spiral.
Responding rather than reacting.
Precisely. And the suggestion is often to start small, just a few minutes each day focusing on the breath. And also, looking at reframing negative thoughts and cultivating self-compassion, being kinder to ourselves in the struggle.
Those seem like such crucial tools for building resilience, for navigating the inevitable ups and downs without getting completely thrown off course. That non-judgmental awareness feels key.
It really does. Okay, so we've explored the body as this sacred vessel and our connection to the world around us. Now the perspective shifts again to something even deeper. Health as liberation,
Liberation, that's a powerful word.
isn't it? It suggests that health isn't just about feeling okay or managing symptoms. It's about unlocking a kind of fundamental freedom.
Moving beyond just absence of illness towards something more profound.
Yes, and it really prompts that fundamental question. Why do we strive for health? What's the ultimate goal?
It takes us beyond the immediate, doesn't it? Asking us to consider the deeper purpose.
And freedom, in this philosophical context, is often described as moving beyond those core sources of suffering, like clinging, resistance, and that lack of clarity or understanding we touched on.
Okay.
And applying that to health, it paints this picture of liberation from things like chronic exhaustion, maybe emotional turmoil tied to our health, breaking free from unhealthy patterns, even freeing ourselves from societal pressures about how we should look or feel.
That's a really inspiring vision. It reframes the whole journey, health not just as a state, but as a path toward inner freedom, autonomy.
It does, and then it beautifully revisits all those principles we discussed, but through this lens of liberation. So moderation, it's not just balance, it's freeing ourselves from the grip of extremes, those cycles of craving and restriction.
Ah. So finding the middle way liberates us from that push-pull, that internal battle, making choices from wisdom, not impulse.
Exactly, and movement as meditation. It becomes about liberating the body and the mind, releasing stored tension, both physical and mental, creating space.
Like dissolving blockages, allowing energy and clarity to flow more freely. It mentions bodhidharma, doesn't it? Emphasizing that balance of stillness and movement for vitality.
Yes, that connection. And sleep, it's reframed again. Not just rest, but restoring the soul almost. An act of surrender, of trust.
A nightly ritual of renewal that empowers us to meet the next day with more presence.
Beautifully put. It elevates it from passive necessity to an active practice of release and rejuvenation.
And gratitude. How does that fit into liberation?
It's seen as liberating us from a mindset of scarcity, of always wanting more or focusing on what's wrong.
Ah, by focusing on the present, on the abundance we already have, like the simple gift of breath.
Yes. And extending that out, appreciating the whole web of life we're part of. It frees us from that constant striving, fostering contentment.
That shift in focus feels incredibly freeing.
Then our surroundings revisiting that.
Yeah.
It becomes about consciously creating an environment that allows us to grow, freeing us from things that drain us or hold us back, decluttering our space, maybe decluttering our social feeds.
Right. Making space, literally and figuratively, for peace and positive growth, taking proactive steps.
In nature, again, it's about reconnecting with our true selves, reminding us we're part of something vast and wise, freeing us from the illusion of separation or the burden of feeling like we have to control everything.
Letting go, trusting the larger rhythms, that feels liberating too.
And finally, mastering the mind. This is presented as perhaps the ultimate liberation, isn't it?
Inner sovereignty.
Yes. Taking ownership of our thoughts, our emotions, choosing our responses, cultivating compassion for ourselves and others, building that inner resilience, freedom from being constantly tossed around by our moods or external events.
It's about cultivating that inner capacity for peace and wisdom, regardless of the outer circumstances.
Exactly. So, as we bring this exploration towards a close, it feels like these principles, they're not just separate tips, are they?
No, not at all. They're deeply interwoven. They form a kind of roadmap, really, a guide not just to physical health, but to this deeper sense of well-being, of freedom.
And the emphasis seems to be that health isn't some final destination we arrive at.
No, it's the path itself. An ongoing journey, an adventure we walk with intention, with awareness.
Which feels hopeful, actually. Because the other encouraging part is that you don't have to overhaul everything overnight.
Absolutely not. The suggestion seems to be, just pick one area. Bring a little more awareness there. That might be the most powerful starting point.
Looking back over everything we've touched on, what feels like a key takeaway for you? What really resonates?
I think it's that fundamental shift. Seeing health not just as fixing problems, but as this holistic process of growth, of unfolding, of liberation, and realizing just how interconnected everything is, body, mind, spirit, environment, and also the quiet power of consistency, that small mindful actions done regularly really can lead to profound shifts. It's not always about grand gestures.
That brings us right back to Ananda, doesn't it?
Yeah.
That example we started with.
It does.
His simple, consistent, mindful practices, eating, sweeping, they genuinely transformed him, according to the story. It's such a clear reminder of the potential within each of us.
The power of intention and presence lived out daily.
So, maybe a gentle invitation for everyone listening. As you go about your days this week, perhaps just notice. Notice your body, notice your breath, notice your thoughts with a little more kindness, a little more curiosity.
What subtle messages might be there? What small shift feels possible right now on your own unique path?
No pressure, just gentle observation.
May you find moments of peace and clarity and perhaps a growing sense of freedom on your journey.